Welcome. You're listening to Cross-Examination, and I am going to be your host for a long time, we hope. And my name is Mark Curran, and I'm in studio with Angela Tomlinson, who runs WSFI, and my producer, Linda Precia, who ran my Senate and Supreme Court campaigns. Welcome, ladies.
Thanks, Mark.
So cross-examination, we came up with this concept based upon my background and what we thought would be a wonderful, exciting show. My background, for those of you that don't know, I was the longest-serving sheriff in Lake County history, 12 years as the elected sheriff, and prior to that, I was a county, state, and federal prosecutor. Tried over 100 juries, tried hundreds and hundreds of bench trials, and I've been doing this business for a very, very long time, and I've come to know a lot of different people, and we're going to have a lot of really exciting guests, and we're not going to let people come in and just, one side only. I'm going to cross-examine them, and I'll do it for both sides, whether it's left, right, regardless of which political party they represent. I ran as both a Democrat and a Republican when I was involved in politics, and I can tell you neither party's platform is Catholic. Neither party is completely Catholic. We are not going to promote one party to the exclusion of the other on this show. That's not what we're about. We're just trying to be nonpartisan and as fair as possible. We do have a problem with the Democrats' party platform on abortion. And that doesn't mean that they're not right on a lot of issues. They are right on a lot of issues, and the Republicans are wrong on a lot of issues. But today's show, we're going to be talking about abortion, and specifically with Clyde McLemore, my guest, who's been the longtime head of Black Lives Matter, a longtime activist in Lake County. By way of opening statement, and before there's a cross-examination or a direct examination, I'll take you through the trial. You begin with opening statements. Then you call your witnesses. The witness testifies first as the witness for whichever party calls him, whether it's the plaintiff or the defendant, or the prosecution or the defense. And then there's a cross-examination of that witness, and then there may be a redirect examination. Exhibits may be introduced, which we may do, and then finally there's a closing statement. So we'll begin right now with our opening statement. We'll keep it very brief because we want you to pay attention to the facts, the story, the cross-examination. So today we're going to be talking about abortion, and specifically what a horrible, horrible plague that has been on the black community for so long. And we go back in time to Roe versus Wade, and Martin Luther King we'll be talking about today as well. And what happened with this, and why did we become so pro-abortion in America, and why did some of these leaders on the abortion issue basically flip and in my opinion sell out? Blacks have 40% approximately, and the numbers vary based upon which study you look at, but 40% of all abortions are blacks. And you look at the founder of Planned Parenthood, and most of the abortions are performed by Planned Parenthood in America, was Margaret Sanger. And Margaret Sanger was an avowed racist, eugenics, believed in getting rid of the lesser races, and specifically black people. And she spoke to groups before the Ku Klux Klan, where she was very well received. And Planned Parenthood, whenever you say anything bad about Planned Parenthood, how dare you? But the bulk of what they do is, once again, is abortions. And we want to talk about that. We also want to talk to Clyde McLemore about why are they all in the inner cities, inner city neighborhoods? Why are they in poor neighborhoods where they're heavily concentrated with minorities? Is that a plan to have minorities to have more abortions? They get their government check, they walk it down to the Planned Parenthood office, and they have an abortion. Is that all by design? And we had one pop up in Waukegan recently. We also want to talk to Clyde about, Clyde knows Jesse Jackson. I know Jesse Jackson. I spent a significant time with him when I was sheriff of Lake County. He came up to protest gun a gun shop in my jurisdiction a couple times, and he and I talked a lot. We talked about abortion, where I called him out on that as he tried to blame the guns alone. I talked to him about fatherless homes, and I talked to him about the violence in black culture, from rap music to video on down the line. I talked to him about all those other factors that contribute to death in the black community. But we have to be honest and acknowledge the fact that how is a society that allows the slaughter of that innocent child in the womb, how is that same society going to say, oh, you can't shoot somebody because life is sacred? Well, you've already sent the message, life is not sacred. And then we wonder why it's become so easy for blacks to engage in abortion. And we want to talk a little bit to Clyde about some of these pastors out there. Why are so few of them pushing the pro-life mantra? How do they get away with being, specifically today we're talking about the heads of the black churches. How do they get away with promoting abortion and at the same time claiming to be disciples of Jesus Christ? So that's what we hope you'll hear today. You'll hear the answers, and we believe we'll prove to you beyond a reasonable doubt, when you hear all of the evidence, that life is in fact sacred and abortion is in fact wrong. And a good friend of mine, Clyde McLemore, the head of the local chapter of Black Lives Matter. The show is cross-examination, so we're going to have a lot of interesting guests, and essentially I'm going to cross-examine them, whether they come from the right or the left, or whether they come from a secular or a Catholic or whatever perspective. We're going to cross-examine everybody. That's the job of a lawyer, is to not let the witness just sit there and put his side out and not put the counter side out. So even if I don't agree with the counter side, I'm going to be cross-examining it. That's essentially what this show is all about. Clyde, I want you to introduce yourself, if you would.
Well, I'm Clyde McLemore, and I'm the Executive Director for Black Lives Matter, Lake County. I'm over 11 different chapters, all the way up to Racine, Wisconsin, Joliet, Illinois, as was part of us, Birmingham, Alabama, Jacksonville, Florida. We have, I'm also affiliated with Chicago chapter, so I'm all around.
You are Clyde. Clyde's one of the most recognizable public figures in Lake County, Illinois, but he's well beyond that. You'll see Clyde down in Chicago all the time on TV talking about Black Lives Matter. Do they have a director for the Chicago branch?
Well, what it is nobody owns the name Black
Right.
Lives Matter.
Right.
So what it is that there's a national that only have 16 different chapters. So what happened is we went independent, and I met with the founders of Black Lives Matter and let them know that we wanted to do it here in Lake County. And in 2015, they granted me that wish, but not put us on the national. We are independent. So what I have been doing, we're brick and mortar too. So what I've been doing is I've been opening up or giving a blueprint to opening up other chapters around the country.
Yeah, and even longer for your time in Black Lives Matter, you've been an activist. You've been somebody that's been out front protesting police brutality and shootings of black and other minorities in the Lake County communities.
Not only that, we have also doing mentorships, because there's a lot of violence here in Illinois. And
Ceasefire, you were part of that.
Well, I was part of it. T.O. Hardiman, who started it, is a very good friend of mine. But what we're doing mentorship classes now, where we doing at-risk intervention with young men to give them the likes to know what is going on, so they don't have to get into this lifestyle of violence that's going on here in Illinois, around the country.
Right. Years ago, I was Clyde's lawyer way back in private practice, got in a little bit of trouble, and I represented him. And we've been friends ever since. Clyde's done a lot of great work in the community on behalf of blacks and others, in drawing attention, that there are some injustices, and the word needs to get out about that. And I commend you as to that, Clyde. Clyde, let me ask you, today or these days we're celebrating the Martin Luther King, the anniversary of Martin Luther King. He actually died on the anniversary of my birthday when I was 5 years old. Remember that U2 song, Shot Rang Out, April 4, Memphis Sky?
Right, right.
So how have we fallen short of the ideals that Martin Luther King wanted in terms of equality and people judged by the content of their character and not the color of their skin?
Well, you know, I look at it like this here. Lack of knowledge is the process of what's happening in this country right now. See, back in '65, when Dr. King was assassinated, people had knowledge of self, and they were more worthy. I'm talking about blacks and whites. They was more worthy of protecting the life and everything. Now we got these games on TV and the computer and stuff like that, where people don't even read books. You know, they don't even go to. You want to look up something in the dictionary, they go to Google right now. You know, well, they don't even do the work to turn the pages and look up a word in the dictionary. Lack of knowledge is the reason that a lot of the stuff is going on, and that the dream is not going further.
Yeah,
you know,
it hasn't been fulfilled.
A lot of people are saying, well, blacks should be all right. We got a black president. Yeah, we had a black president, and that was a dream that we never thought would happen. But what else is happening? Because when we had that black president, we had people fighting against him.
Right.
You know, so
let me ask you this. It used to be integral to the black community was the church and the pastor. And having run for office a number of times, my perception is that a number of these pastors in black communities, they get money from the government, and that they're in bed with the Democratic Party, and that they're not doing a lot of good for the community. What would you say to that?
You hit me with one.
Okay.
Because I go be honest. You know,
Yeah.
I'm an honest
Yeah.
person.
Yeah.
And me myself, I don't too much care for these bootleg preachers that's out here. I have to be honest about it. I have one-on-ones with certain ministers that's around here that I do speak with, that speak the truth, that I don't need to follow behind, because these are leaders.
Yeah.
You know, there's churches on almost every corner now, and they're empty.
Right.
You know, people are not following back into the religion no more, or nothing like that. So, and when something happens politically, or police violence, or anything like that, where are our leaders that get this money? But see, once they get these grants, because they're 501c3 pimps, that's what I call them. But once they get these grants, they no longer can come out and be leaders. You know, they can be sellers. You know,
Right. No, I agree with you 100%. I'll give you a quick story. I went, Pastor Roberson, I was running for office most recently, and I went to his church, and he's a nice guy. He pulls up in a nice Porsche and beautiful vehicle, and one that I could never afford in my lifetime. Comes in, and there's about 10 black ministers, and I used the term black when talking about what I had done for their community, and they started jumping on me for not saying African American. And I'm thinking, you got to be kidding me. So I knew that I was being set up to essentially fail, and that, you know, pursuing their support or their endorsement was kind of a wasted venture. And, you know, they went beyond that, and they started jumping on me for my pro-life stance and what have you. So Black Lives Matter, that's what it's called, right? It's not African American Lives Matter.
That's your opinion. You know, I'm going to tell you, don't call me no Afro-American. I'm black. I got a chance to go to Africa.
Yeah.
You know? So I've been home, and I got a chance to understand and see the people. I went through the door of no return. So I'm black.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, absolutely.
I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah.
I can't speak for them. But there was some good pastors. We had Pastor Gas.
Right, Arthur
Pastor
Gas.
Gas
Yeah.
was one
Who
of
worked for me in the jail for a long time.
and he was one of the most righteous pastors that we had in Lake County. you know.
Right, absolutely. There seems to not be the energy towards getting things better that there was under King. I mean, you look at what happened in terms of the shootings, and there were wrongful shootings across the country. Everything erupted into looting and violence and what have you. King was all about peaceful marches. How did we go south on that?
Okay, you got to look at, we got these games called, that these kids play and everything like that. We look at the community. Don't get me wrong. I've never done no looting or nothing like that. I'm too old. I ain't get ready to jump in no windows. I ain't get ready to take nothing. I would beg you for it. I ask you for it, but I'm not getting ready to take nothing. But we look at these stores like Target and what the auto store, the auto stores that they burned up and everything like that. What have they done in the community? They come in our communities and they rob us. They take our money out of our communities and they don't put money back into the community. They don't. We could go and say, well, hey, we want to start a baseball team here in the community and we want to help them get uniforms. But they won't even give a donation or nothing like that. But so, I mean, you look at it like this here. I was in Minnesota during the riots of George Floyd. I've been back to Minnesota since. It's all, the insurance took care of all that. You know, I led the marches in Kenosha. I was not there doing none of the destruction in Kenosha. But I'm going to...
They did arrest you for something, though, huh?
They arrested me for kicking the door.
Yeah.
They arrested me, but I won that in a jury trial that I was found not guilty on it, you know.
Right.
But, you know, as I was saying, all that's redone and everything.
Well, let me ask you a question. Okay, so I get what you're saying, and I'm going to go back to what happened to me at Pastor Roberson's church. 2 elected officials, Angelo Kyle on the county board, kind of, because he was whispering, and Mark Jones, who's the head of Lake County
Township
organization. Thanks, Clyde. They were the ones that were leading that, you know, African American business. And so, do you think that sometimes we purposely divide in what have you? You know, I'll tell you something. Answer me that. Do we purposely divide on both sides? Sometimes?
Well, I can't speak on their behalf. I don't know what the situation. I wasn't there, Mark, so I won't speak on that to say how they feeling or anything like that. I do know each gentleman, and I know him personally. You know, I have no problem with them. I've never heard them come at me or say anything like that. You know, I don't know what the situation was.
If you run for office as a Republican, though, they're going to come at you, and it doesn't matter what the color of your skin.
Well, you know, I'm going to tell you, you know, I'm a 501c3 too.
Right.
And, you know, I've supported some Republicans. I supported,
I know you have.
I supported Bob Dole. I supported Joe Walsh. Joe didn't do what he said he would do, but I supported him and he won. You know, that's something that I've done. You know, and Bob Dole was one of the best congressmen we ever had in Lake County. You know.
Okay, Clyde. So what you were saying about businesses and they don't give back to the community. I started in the Lake County State's Attorney's Office back in the 1980s, so I've been around for a while. They have not had a grocery store. I think recently they just got one in North Chicago, a town of what's the population? At least 35,000 in 30 years. So why don't they invest? Why would a business want to invest in a black community if they're worried about crime and what have you?
Well, you know what? That's happening. Food deserts are all over the country. And it's not only in the black community, it's also in the brown community. You go to New York, it's all over. It's all over in the brown community. I can't say what a business do. Most businesses want to locate by a freeway. Well, that's where they want to locate at. And when you living in a town like North Chicago, it's up in the part where it's in
downtown.
Down, you know, it's no freeway there.
Oh,
there's no freeway there, so it's not a lot of people coming through.
We want to get into one of the topics I wanted to talk to you about, and it's abortion. What's your opinion on abortion?
Well, I believe this here. and I'm glad you asked. You know, I'm not a woman, so I don't know much about abortions. But I will say, I am for a woman's rights. Women have a right for her own body. That, I mean, to have a court order to come in and to say that they can't have abortion, I thought was really ludicrous. I mean, men have vasectomy, and no court order has ever came up. You look at today's prices and poverty that's going on and homelessness that's going on in this country. I commend a woman that would say, well, I want to get things together before I have a child, you know, and I don't think that it would be giving this child the best of life right now to have abortion. I am not, I am for the women. Let them, that's their body, they get a chance to choose. What if a person is raped? Should they have that baby?
Good questions, Clyde. So what this show is called is cross-examination. So I'm going to finish my interview with you, and I'm going to batter out a series of questions. Okay, Clyde, let's begin with the concept of abortion. When does life begin?
Life began the moment that, to me, baby, okay, my opinion, when that baby breathes.
And so what's that inside the woman's womb that we see on an ultrasound?
It's embryo.
Embryo?
Embryo.
Okay, so that child, that whatever you want to call it that's inside the womb, you realize that being can live outside the womb for much of the period that she's pregnant.
Can live outside the womb?
Outside the womb. Are you aware of that?
No, I'm not aware of that. I'm not going. How can a embryo live outside the womb?
Once birth is given or a C-section is performed, even after only 6 months and oftentimes less, the child still lives outside the womb.
Okay, but that's 6 months. When you're 2-3 months pregnant, and you decide that eggs today is $5 is something.
So when?
Wait, yeah, hold on now. Eggs today is $5 or something, and I know that if I was a woman and I knew that I'm working, making $15 an hour, and I'm paying bills and everything, I know I couldn't give that child a life, that would be profitable for this child. Then, and I decided to have abortion.
So is that the basis by which we should decide whether someone lives or dies, is whether or not there's enough money out there and the parents have?
It's not our choice. It's woman's choice.
Okay, it's not our choice. So you realize that if that woman does have the child, that you've had this experience, you'll have to pay child support.
Yes, you do.
So she can have the child. Because why? Because you participated in the birth of that child.
That's right. That's right.
And then if she decides to have that child, then you're going to pay child support as you have had to do.
Not only did I have to pay child support, because you know my story.
Yes.
But you didn't know the other part of it. My baby mother died, so I had to raise my son from 6 months all the way up to he's 19 today. I had to be the father. I wasn't really looking to be a father. I'm glad that I got that chance to have that experience, but I wasn't looking to be no father.
Okay, Clyde, why is it that, what are your feelings about Planned Parenthood?
Well, I just say like this here. We never had that coming up. What we had was that we, coming up. So you got to remember, I'm not I'm not a Generation X, or I'm a millennial. I am a baby boomer. So baby boomers.
Right, we're close to the same age. How old are you?
I'm 63.
Okay.
So baby boomers didn't have that Planned Parenthood.
Okay, so let me just ask you this: good or bad, Planned Parenthood?
I believe it was good.
Planned Parenthood is good. And do you think it's good that Planned Parenthood has most of their clinics in the inner city so that black and other minority children can have abortions?
They don't only have them there.
Clyde, they have 80% of their clinics are in inner cities.
Okay.
Over 80%.
Okay, we the one that's hurting.
So
we the ones.
So do you think that that's
black
good?
and brown people are the ones that's most hurting.
Did you know that the founder of Planned Parenthood was eugenics and was an avowed racist and believed in the extinction of essentially minorities, specifically the black race? Margaret Sanger.
Well, now that's a little research that I'm not familiar with. And I'm not going to respond to that because I'm not familiar with it. But I've heard it, but I didn't do the research.
Yeah, did you realize that she had what she called the Negro Project, and then in her autobiography where she talks about speaking to the Ku Klux Klan, that she advocated for eugenics and breeding for the gradual suppression, elimination, and eventual extinction of defective stocks.
Well, okay. What about
So that's
Jim
Planned
Crow?
Parenthood.
What about Jim Crow?
No, I'm talking about Planned.
The
question is about Planned Parenthood. Is Planned Parenthood an evil?
Well,
is Planned Parenthood evil?
But we gonna forget about what happened years ago during the slavery thing.
Clyde, do you realize that approximately 40% of the U.S. abortions are of black people?
I've never checked numbers. All I just said is woman's choice. If a woman choose to have abortion,
are you worried that there's a genocide going on against blacks, so that they're no longer going to have the political muscle? They're 14% of the population. Their population is decreasing all across America. And in the inner cities, where look at Chicago, where it was once 50% black, it's now down to a third, and it's going lower and lower and lower because they're killing them off. No, they're killing them off.
With violence.
So you don't have a problem with that whole agenda of Planned Parenthood and the fact.
I have no problem with anybody that want to give somebody help. That if they want to have an abortion or they want to help them with their pregnancy, I have no problem with it. I think our women need these medical services.
You've met Jesse Jackson. I've met Jesse Jackson. We both spent a lot of time with him. Do you think Jesse Jackson was right when he said this? Politicians argue for abortion largely because they do not want to spend the necessary money to feed, clothe, and educate more people. There are those who argue that the right to privacy is of higher order than the right to life. I do not share that view. That was the premise of slavery. You could not protest the existence or treatment of slaves on the plantation because that was private and therefore outside of your right to concern.
I'm not going to even comment on that because Jesse is that's one of my ancestors, my father. But I will say this.
Jesse Jackson was pro-life. He addressed the right to life, national right to life.
Let me say something to you. Let me say something to you about abortion and everything. I was a chronic runaway when I was a kid. So I was a DCFS child. They took me away used to run away. I used to break into the Artie homes because my mama was beat my butt, and I wouldn't take a whooping. So I've had to be a part of DCFS. And being a part of DCFS, I met a lot of children that went through that didn't have parents. So they had nowhere for these children to go.
It would have been better that they...
Hold on. They were raped. They were... so much harm was done. And even today, they don't even have...
So it would have been better that they be killed in the womb.
If the parents is... I'm not saying that abortion should be done. I'm just saying it's a woman's choice.
Does Black Lives Matter have a position on abortion?
I said it's a woman's choice.
So Black Lives Matter's position is it's a woman's choice. You're right that Black Lives Matter condemned the Supreme Court decision in Dobbs, saying that it was taking away that right from minorities. So you have no concern that the black population is just going to get smaller and smaller, and they're taken advantage of by these avowed racists that founded Planned Parenthood.
We're no longer, and will never be, the majority. We are and will be who we are. And if a woman chooses to have an abortion, that's just on her.
So Clyde,
it's not, and guess what? White folks are no longer the minority, the majority either. Guess who is? It's your Latinos and everything. They coming from all over. The Chinese. You know what I'm saying? So, I
Right.
mean, you can't ask me a question that the black race is being eliminated or taken away from. You can't say that.
Let me ask you one last question, and that is, do you think the destruction of the family has played a role in the proliferation of abortion, the fact that there aren't black fathers in the homes?
Yes. Mass incarceration, redlining. Yes, of course.
So, Clyde, you have the last word. Is in a cross-examination. There's a direct examination, a cross-examination, and there's a redirect where you get to say it. So, tell me why I am wrong. Tell me why I am wrong to think that there's a genocide going on against blacks, that they're targeted by Planned Parenthood in all the inner cities, that the numbers bear out the fact that the blacks are committing genocide on themselves through the evil of Planned Parenthood, and that many of the great black leaders throughout history were pro-life, but they sold out to the Democratic Party, like our friend Jesse Jackson. Tell me why I'm wrong.
I'm not going to say that. Well, I'm going to say this here. I'm not going to say you're wrong. That's your opinion. And your opinion, you're welcome to have it. Everybody got one, okay? But I will say this here. I don't know about black leaders selling out because I'm a 501c3 and I'm not selling out. And you know, I'm more independent than I am Democrat. So you know, you can't say that that's just me. I'm not speaking on behalf of Black Lives Matter because we're nonpartisan. So I have to say that for somebody to hear this and say, well, Clyde said Black Lives Matter is independent and not Democrat. But what I want to say is, people, just like you have that opinion, a woman has a choice. It's her body. She should be able to have the choice to know if she wants to bear a child. Some women don't.
Objection. What choice does a child get a choice to live or not?
It's not.
Is it only her body, or is it the child's body also?
For the first 18 years, child don't have a choice. It's up to the parents to take care of them. You know what I'm saying? It takes the parents to take care of them. So they have to feed them and eat them, and so they can eat and everything like that. If they're not in a position, some women just want to have a career, not ready to have children, and slipped and got pregnant.
Right, that's so much more important.
What
So
about
Clyde,
no?
No.
What about what about incest?
Yeah,
What about incest?
right.
Should she be able to have abortion, or should she have to have?
So before we answer that, let's acknowledge that that's such an infinitesimally small number of abortions, and that somehow makes the argument for all other abortions.
Actually,
right?
it happened more in the white community than it do in the black community.
Yeah. You've been listening to WSFI Catholic Radio, 750 AM, 88.5 FM. Our gracious guest, Clyde McLemore. He's the head of the local chapter of Black Lives Matter. And if you contribute to Black Lives Matter locally, he does do a lot of good with backpack drives for the needy, Christmas gifts for the needy, feeding people and what have you. So if you can earmark your contributions for those purposes if you have a problem with some of the other purposes. Clyde, thank you so much. You're a wonderful guy.
Thank you, Mark.
We're back. Mark Curran, cross-examination, and we are going to have so much fun. You got to listen to this show on a regular basis. I really, really encourage you. And Angela Tomlinson, tell us when this show is going to be broadcast from week to week.
Right now, we have it scheduled for every Tuesday at 4 o'clock p.m. Tuesday
Awesome.
at 4 o'clock p.m.
So by way of rebuttal evidence, and rebuttal evidence is sometimes after the case is put in, do you have anything that you want to add to contradict what the witness said? So Clyde said that what is in the womb is not a child, what is in the womb is an embryo. And I want to ask Linda Precia. Linda, would you tell us how he was wrong?
Yeah, I mean, so we often hear people say, we want to follow the science. So let's follow the science here. So when a child is conceived or a baby is conceived, what happens is it turns into a process. And the process is the sperm and the egg, I believe they come together and the sperm penetrates the egg and that actually turns into a blastocyst. And that blastocyst divides and then it turns into an embryo, but it doesn't stay an embryo. It actually then turns into a fully formed fetus. And, you know, if you want to sit there and follow the science, well, you know, there's a lot of people now we are understanding what a fetus is, and that fetus actually does exhibit human traits of feeling pain. And my own daughter, she was born really early. She was
Vivian.
Vivian. She was actually one of the smallest babies born in Illinois. And this was, we're talking about 10 years ago. Our technology and our science allowed us to have doctors to have the knowledge to save a baby, bring this baby into the world, and deliver her at 26 weeks where she was viable. Now, it took about 4 doctors to save her life and about 4 months in the hospital to get her ready to come home with our family. But the reality is I think what's really important is how our science has allowed us, through ultrasound, through testing, to understand what's going on inside the womb. And even Princeton University came out years ago and they submitted, yes, life begins at conception. So that's where we are with science, and it just seems like a good chunk of the population now seems to be ignoring a good chunk of the science. They don't want to talk about the ultrasounds and what they see. They don't want to talk about the studies that are done. And you know, the fact that we have the medical capacity to deliver a baby. You know, I also often talk to people about this argument that's made about, well, what about the life of the mother? Well, the life of the mother, you don't kill a baby to save the life of the mother. The doctor's objective is to, save both mother and baby always. And so if you terminated a child, that child would have to come out anyways. So the common sense is that they deliver the baby, whether it's at a viable stage in the pregnancy. They would administer that child or that baby with the resources that it would need, oxygen. They'd put in, one of those NG tubes to start feeding it and to try to grow this baby. So there's just so much technology that is afforded the woman and the baby now to survive. And I
Right.
think that,
I mean, the young people don't claim that it's not a child anymore because they see the ultrasounds when their brother or sister was born. Let me ask you, Angela, when can that child live outside the womb?
I think at even 23 weeks they have delivered babies now. And, if they give them the right cocktail before they're born, like they give them the steroids to develop the lungs, and they do things to make sure that there isn't a brain bleed, those babies could start having really good outcomes. Like my daughter, she was given steroids. I was actually given steroids, and that actually pumps up the baby's lungs. And she, when she was delivered, she actually, at 26 weeks, gave out a cry, and the doctors were amazed.
Quickly summarize and give a little bit of a closing argument right now. Let me just begin by saying, obviously, that Clyde's portion of the evidence was based upon a false assumption, the embryo that Lynn has cleared up. And that's the case, I think, with a lot of people, especially in my generation, a little bit older, that they used to use the term a bunch of cells. That's what we've heard Jesse Jackson say and others. And we are talking about abortion. And, when I talked to Clyde, I went in a little bit about a political party. I want to make very, 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 very clear, being Catholic is neither political party, and both parties have problems. So don't mistake anything to be said that's partisan here. We promise to be nonpartisan, and we want you to call us out if you feel like we've been partisan. As the Republican Party, you talk about the consistent ethic of life, and that means just war. That means, how you treat the immigrant, preferential treatment for the poor. That means, essentially to be good witnesses in terms of showing people that we believe that that's a child in the womb and needs to be protected. And we should be doing something for the poor and all the marginalized in our society. We talk about, a consistent ethic of life. That was the term that Cardinal George used. And, he went through the whole line of things that it meant. And the Republican Party can be wrong on many of those issues. So, and it is wrong on some of those issues, no question about it. Cardinal Bernardine called it a seamless garment, but it's not just abortion. We believe abortion is the preeminent issue according to what Catholic teaching, I think by most respected Catholic theologians. But there are other issues, and we're not going to be a partisan radio station. I want to promise you that. So real quickly, we think that Clyde missed the boat in arguing that the black community, and we're not picking on the black community. We're trying to help the black community and throw them a lifeline, if you will, because they've been targeted by white racists. Margaret Sanger and crowd, and probably a lot of the others that came after her in Planned Parenthood. They've been targeting blacks, and it's a genocide on their population, and they're having the highest numbers. And, ultimately, because we love all our brothers and sisters, we want to bring that to your attention. I think that, I mentioned Jesse Jackson. I mentioned others that flipped on the issue. We talked about black pastors. I mentioned a pastor's testimony. I testified to what happened in a pastor's church. By the way, I did send an invitation to that pastor to appear on our show. He didn't respond. I also sent an invitation to the county board member to appear on our show. Didn't respond. So they're happy to come on anytime, give their side of the story. I'm happy to do that. I don't want to say anything that's not true or that is wrong. So I'd love to be corrected because we want you to hear nothing but truth. So essentially, I don't think I need to say a whole lot more to the listeners out there. Brevity is probably the best strategy right here, isn't it, Linda?
Oh, absolutely.
It's a life, and we need to protect it, and we need to essentially stand for life. God bless you, and thanks for listening.